When an avoidant person lives in your thoughts all the time, the first thing that is already happening to him is an inner movement he is trying hard not to notice. Avoidant personalities build their lives around emotional safety, and safety for them usually means distance, control, and predictability. Yet the moment someone begins to occupy their mind repeatedly, that system is quietly disturbed. He may continue with his routine, answer messages calmly, and act as if nothing unusual is taking place. But inside, he feels a subtle pressure he cannot name. The presence of another human being in his thoughts challenges the story he has told himself for years, the story that he is better alone and untouched. Avoidance is often misunderstood as coldness, but in reality, it is a defense against being overwhelmed by feeling. So, when you appear in his mind again and again, he is already experiencing the first crack in that defense. He begins to notice that silence is no longer peaceful in the same way, and that distance has started to feel like a decision instead of a habit. This does not immediately make him chase connection, but it places him at a crossroads he did not plan to visit. The significance of this stage is that emotional relevance has been created without a single argument or confession. His inner world, which he believed was organized and secure, has now received an unexpected guest, and he is unsure whether to welcome it or pretend the knock never happened. Such uncertainty often makes him appear more reserved than before, yet that reserve is evidence that something meaningful is already at work beneath the surface. Understanding this helps you see that the process begins long before any visible change in behavior, and that being on his mind is not a small or casual event, but the beginning of a private transformation he did not schedule. The second layer of this experience is the quiet argument that starts between his logic and his emotion. An avoidant man survives by trusting logic more than feeling, because logic seems controllable while emotion feels dangerous. When you occupy his thoughts, that balance is shaken. He tells himself sensible reasons to stay detached, reminding himself of past disappointments and the comfort of independence. Yet alongside those arguments, there appears a softer voice asking about you, remembering details, and imagining conversations that have not happened. This inner debate can exhaust him, even though no one else sees it. He may respond to this tension by acting distant or by delaying decisions, not out of cruelty, but out of confusion. The mind of an avoidant is like a house with carefully labeled rooms, and your presence suddenly opens doors that were meant to stay closed. He is forced to reconsider beliefs he treated as permanent. What looks like mixed signals from the outside is often a man trying to protect an identity that no longer fits him perfectly. Recognizing this stage allows you to interpret his behavior with wisdom instead of taking every hesitation as rejection. The truth is that once you live in his thoughts, his old logic has already lost some of its authority, and that is a powerful shift, even if it remains invisible to the world. An avoidant man who finds someone living in his thoughts begins to experience a subtle rebellion inside his own reasoning. For years, he has relied on a carefully built philosophy that distance keeps him safe and that emotional independence is the highest form of strength. This belief has protected him from disappointment, yet it has also kept life narrow and predictable. The moment your presence becomes constant in his mind, that philosophy is challenged without a single debate taking place out loud. He notices himself wondering about you at moments when he used to feel completely self-contained. Such curiosity makes him uncomfortable because it suggests that his system is not as solid as he imagined. He may respond by tightening his boundaries or by acting more controlled, but these reactions are signs of conflict rather than proof of indifference. Inside, he is comparing two voices, the old voice that says he needs no one, and the new voice that admits your existence has meaning. This comparison is exhausting for a person who values certainty. Avoidant personalities prefer clear rules, yet emotion rarely follows rules, and that unpredictability unsettles him. The important truth is that once this inner argument begins, he can no longer return to the simple version of himself that existed before meeting you. Even if he chooses distance, the question has already been planted. Understanding this allows you to see that his hesitation is not emptiness, but the noise of a mind learning to feel again. At the same time, he begins to reinterpret the idea of safety. Previously, safety meant being unreachable, needing little, and keeping expectations low. Now safety becomes confusing because thinking about you makes him feel both calm and nervous in the same breath. He realizes that complete independence, which once felt powerful, also feels lonely when measured against the possibility of connection. This realization does not arrive as a dramatic revelation, but as small moments during ordinary days. He might be walking home or sitting among friends and suddenly recognize that he wishes you were there. Such thoughts surprise him, and he quickly tries to minimize them, yet they return with quiet persistence. The walls he built were designed to keep pain out, but they also kept warmth away, and he is slowly noticing the cost of that design. This stage often makes him behave inconsistently because he is redefining what protection truly means. Part of him wants to move closer to the source of comfort, and another part fears losing control. The struggle between these impulses explains why he may take one step forward and then retreat. It is not a game, but a man negotiating with his own history. When you are on his mind all the time, his definition of safety has already begun to change, and that change marks the beginning of genuine emotional growth, even if it moves at a cautious pace. When an avoidant person cannot stop thinking about someone, memories begin to behave in a way he is not used to controlling. He has usually trained his mind to keep the past organized and harmless, selecting only the pieces that do not threaten his independence. Yet your presence makes ordinary moments unexpectedly vivid. He may remember the simple way you listened to him or a casual conversation that once seemed unimportant. These recollections arrive without invitation and interrupt the careful distance he prefers. An avoidant man likes to believe that memories are neutral records, but now they feel alive and persuasive. This change unsettles him because it suggests that connection has already entered a private space he guarded for years. He might try to distract himself with work or routine, yet the images return in quiet hours, proving stronger than his discipline. The power of memory is that it does not argue, it simply reminds. Through these reminders, he begins to sense that you are no longer a passing figure, but part of his inner landscape. Such awareness can make him restless and uncertain about how to behave. He is discovering that emotional influence does not require constant contact, only genuine meaning. Understanding this stage helps you recognize that his silence does not equal forgetfulness. Often the opposite is true, and the more he tries to appear unaffected, the more actively his memories are working beneath the surface. These memories also start reshaping the story he tells himself about relationships. For a long time, he believed that closeness inevitably leads to disappointment, so he kept expectations small to avoid pain. Now the moments connected to you contradict that narrative. He notices that not all interactions feel demanding, and that some conversations actually gave him energy instead of taking it away. This realization is gentle but powerful, like a light entering a room that was kept dim on purpose. He may not admit it openly, yet he begins comparing you with the guarded images of relationships from his past. The contrast forces him to reconsider whether his old conclusions were entirely fair. Such reconsideration can make him cautious because changing beliefs feels like losing familiar ground. Nevertheless, the process has started, and once begun, it cannot be neatly reversed. Memories act as quiet teachers, showing him possibilities he tried not to imagine. They remind him that connection can be simple and human, rather than dramatic or dangerous. When this understanding grows, he becomes aware that distance has protected him, but also limited him. The significance of this moment is that emotional curiosity replaces rigid avoidance. Even if he moves slowly, the door of his inner world is no longer completely closed, and that opening exists because you remained in his thoughts long enough to matter. When an avoidant man keeps someone in his thoughts, he begins to experience time in a different and unfamiliar way. Before this, his days were arranged like solid blocks, predictable and safely separate from emotion. He could move from morning to evening without measuring the hours against anyone. Yet your presence in his mind quietly changes that rhythm. He starts noticing how long it has been since he last heard from you, even while telling himself that it does not matter. Minutes that once felt ordinary begin to carry expectation, and expectation is a language he rarely speaks. This new awareness can make him uneasy because it challenges the illusion that he lives entirely on his own schedule. He may respond by acting busier than he truly is, or by delaying contact to prove that he remains in control. Still, beneath those efforts, he feels the simple truth that another person has influenced the shape of his day. Avoidant personalities value emotional independence, so realizing that someone affects their sense of time feels almost like losing territory. The significance of this stage is that connection is no longer an abstract idea, but a force touching his everyday life. Even without meeting, you have altered the tempo of his private world, and that alteration is impossible to completely ignore. Understanding this helps you see that his slow or uneven responses often come from adjustment rather than lack of care. As this new relationship with time develops, he also begins to reconsider his future in small, careful ways. Plans he once treated as fixed start to look flexible because the possibility of seeing you appears somewhere on the horizon. An avoidant man rarely allows imagination to wander towards shared experiences, yet now he catches himself doing exactly that. He might picture a simple conversation or a casual meeting and then quickly pull back, worried that he has stepped too far from familiar ground. This push and pull reveals how deeply your presence has entered his thinking. Time, which used to feel like a straight road he walked alone, now contains crossroads he did not expect. Such a change can make him cautious, even defensive, because it asks him to admit that he might want something beyond solitude. The important truth is that when someone affects the way a person imagines tomorrow, they have already reached a meaningful place in his heart. He may not confess this aloud, but his inner calendar has begun to make space for you. That quiet rearrangement is the fourth sign that transformation is underway, proving that being on his mind is shaping not only his memories, but also the direction in which he slowly learns to look ahead. When an avoidant man keeps thinking about someone, a quiet sense of protectiveness begins to grow inside him, even if he never names it that way. He has spent much of his life believing that caring too deeply leads to dependence. So he trained himself to stay emotionally neutral. Yet the constant presence of you in his mind awakens an instinct he cannot completely control. He may catch himself hoping that your day is gentle, wondering whether you are safe on your way home, or feeling uneasy when he imagines you being treated carelessly by others. These thoughts surprise him because they do not fit the image of the independent man he prefers to be. An avoidant personality usually expresses emotion through practical gestures rather than open declarations, so this protectiveness often appears in small, almost invisible forms. He might offer help without being asked or choose his words more carefully so that he does not cause you discomfort. To an outside observer, these actions can look ordinary, yet inside him they represent a significant shift. Caring about another person's well-being means he has allowed you to step inside the boundary he guarded for years. This can make him nervous, and sometimes he reacts by pulling back to regain balance. Understanding this helps you read his behavior with patience, realizing that tenderness in an avoidant heart often speaks in a quiet language rather than a loud one. This developing concern also forces him to face the difference between control and connection. He once believed that keeping emotional distance protected both himself and others, but now he sees that distance can also feel like neglect. The more he thinks about you, the more he notices that genuine care requires a certain willingness to be affected. This idea challenges his old habits because it suggests that strength might include involvement instead of retreat. He wrestles with this lesson privately, testing how close he can stand to feeling without losing the sense of self he values. Some days he manages this balance gracefully, and other days he withdraws to familiar territory, yet the movement continues beneath the surface. Protectiveness becomes a teacher, showing him that relationships are not only about risk, but also about responsibility and warmth. When this understanding grows, he begins to soften in ways he never planned. The importance of this stage is that emotion is no longer only something to defend against. It becomes something worth guarding. Even if he never speaks the words directly, the fact that he worries for you proves that you matter within his inner world. That realization marks the fifth step of change, demonstrating that being on his mind has already touched the careful core of who he is becoming. When an avoidant man continues to hold someone in his thoughts, his sense of identity slowly begins to stretch beyond the shape he once knew. For many years, he defined himself as the person who manages alone, the one who needs little and reveals even less. That definition gave him clarity and protection, yet it also became a narrow room with very little air. Your constant presence in his mind questions that old description without accusing him directly. He notices that the version of himself who cares about you does not match the image of the untouchable man he tried to be. This discovery unsettles him because identity feels like home, and no one likes to feel uncertain inside their own home. He may react by emphasizing independence more strongly, reminding himself and others that he remains self-sufficient. Still, beneath those declarations, he senses a new possibility, the possibility that he can be connected and still be himself. This inner conflict is delicate and often invisible, yet it is one of the deepest changes an avoidant person can experience. Understanding this stage allows you to see that his inconsistent steps are not games, but experiments of a cautious heart, trying to learn a wider definition of who he is allowed to become. As this rethinking continues, he begins to observe himself with unusual honesty. He recognizes moments when he pulls away out of habit rather than true desire, and this awareness both embarrasses and educates him. An avoidant man is rarely taught to examine his emotional patterns, so such reflection feels unfamiliar. He may test the distance between you, moving a little closer one day and further the next, not to manipulate but to understand his own limits. Each movement teaches him something about the kind of man he might grow into if fear were not in charge. This process is slow because identity changes more cautiously than feelings do. Yet the simple fact that he is questioning old rules means the walls around him are no longer solid stone but something softer. He begins to imagine a future version of himself who can care without disappearing, who can stay present without losing freedom. The importance of this stage is that growth is happening at the level of character, not only emotion. When an avoidant man allows someone to influence the way he sees himself, transformation has reached a depth that casual connections never touch. That is the sixth sign that your place in his mind is quietly reshaping the story he tells about his own life. When an avoidant man keeps someone on his mind, he begins to notice patterns in the world around him that reflect his private feelings. Ordinary experiences suddenly take on new meaning because he compares them to his situation with you. Songs on the radio, conversations with friends, or stories in movies may seem to speak directly about connection, vulnerability, or care. For someone who has long relied on emotional detachment, this awareness is unfamiliar and unsettling. He starts to see examples of healthy closeness and wonders quietly whether such ease could exist for him. This process does not happen all at once. It is subtle, as small observations accumulate and quietly challenge old rules. He He may resist these reflections, telling himself that they are irrelevant or overthought, yet they continue to return. The avoidant mind prefers concrete evidence, and suddenly these fragments of life around him begin acting as mirrors. They reflect not only what he feels, but also what he might be capable of feeling if he allows himself to move carefully toward connection. This stage is important because it shows that learning about emotion is not only internal, it can be guided by observation and context. By noticing lessons everywhere, he begins preparing himself for the steps he once considered impossible, even if he still appears hesitant. Alongside these external lessons, he begins to test his boundaries gently. He notices his reactions to situations that remind him of you and uses them as private experiments. For instance, he might allow himself to ask more questions, linger longer in conversation, or consider your perspective without retreating. Each of these small acts helps him measure how much closeness he can tolerate without feeling overwhelmed. The significance of this is that curiosity replaces automatic avoidance. Where he once may have shut down immediately, he now observes his responses and adjusts slowly. The avoidant personality fears vulnerability, yet when someone occupies his mind consistently, he cannot ignore the possibility that risk and reward coexist. These reflections and small trials build a bridge between distance and engagement. Even if he does not share these thoughts aloud, they mark real movement internally. By seeing patterns, reflecting on them, and experimenting in subtle ways, he is already learning how to navigate connection safely. Your presence in his mind has created a private classroom where change is possible. What may appear externally as indecision is internally a careful preparation for trust and openness. This is the seventh signal that your influence has reached deeper than surface behavior, showing that transformation is already quietly underway. When an avoidant man occupies your thoughts continuously, hope begins to share space with fear inside him, even if he never admits it aloud. Avoidant personalities are skilled at keeping hope small because it can easily lead to disappointment, so they build walls around expectations. Yet your constant presence challenges that self-imposed limit. Suddenly, he begins to imagine possibilities he never allowed himself to consider before. He may catch himself hoping for messages, anticipating moments together, or imagining conversations that have not yet occurred. With this hope comes fear, the fear of losing control, of being misunderstood, or of needing someone more deeply than he believes he can handle. This mixture can make him appear inconsistent. He may pull back at times, act distant, or send confusing signals. These actions are not signs that he does not care, but reflections of the internal tension between desire and self-protection. Even if he appears calm outwardly, inside a private struggle is occurring. The coexistence of hope and fear demonstrates that he is no longer untouched by your presence. It is proof that your thoughts have entered the private space of his mind in a meaningful way, creating both longing and caution simultaneously. Understanding this allows you to interpret his behavior with patience and clarity rather than frustration, knowing that his inner world is quietly negotiating the balance between closeness and independence. This internal negotiation often manifests as small, careful steps. He may allow himself to respond more openly, linger in conversation, or notice your feelings in subtle ways, even as he tests his own limits. Each cautious movement is a way of gauging whether hope can coexist with the fear of vulnerability. The importance of this stage is that transformation has begun at the deepest level. He is learning that being affected by someone is not a weakness, but a signal of engagement. He is preparing himself to navigate closeness without feeling overwhelmed, even if progress is slow and uneven. Hope encourages him to imagine a version of connection he once believed was unattainable, while fear ensures that he approaches it carefully. The combination of these two forces marks the eighth signal that your influence has reached a profound level. Being on his mind all the time has awakened curiosity, reflection, and quiet emotional rehearsal. Even if he never voices these thoughts directly, the interplay of hope and fear confirms that his internal world is shifting. That shift is the beginning of openness, proving that consistent presence can quietly reshape an avoidant heart long before words or actions make the change visible.